Welcome back, everybody. This week, as I've already been talking about and mentioned on the podcast and over on the Substack, currently over in the Stay or Go community, we are spending April and May exploring the realm of connection and specifically how we connect down into ourselves, to those deepest parts of ourselves. And while I was doing this work, kind of creating up this curriculum that I've been introducing in the community this year, and sitting with, for myself, what are some of the tools I've used to help me with connection? Definitely in the top three was tarot. Tarot has become one of my favorite ways to connect in to my intuition, to hear my inner voice more easily, to just kind of step outside the narrow confines of my mind and the way it's been programmed and what it looks for, and to get the bigger picture. And so, of course, when I was thinking about guests I might want to have in or workshops to do in the community, although I talk about tarot a lot, I use it extensively for myself. And as many of you know, I've even created a AI tarot guide for those of you like me that were like, at the beginning, I don't really know what to do. That's in episode 50. If you don't have that, go check that one out. I've heard from many of you how helpful that's been. But I was like, I want to do something different. I don't want to teach it. I want to bring somebody else in to vibe about it with, to really get to have their perspective and take on it as well. And lo and behold, y'all, my amazing guest from episode 45, Allison Alexander, who was one of my very first guests to bring into the community, is a tarot aficionado. And has many years working with tarot. I was so excited when I remembered this, reached back out to her, and I am very, very delighted to welcome her back to the podcast to vibe with me and deep dive around tarot today. So welcome back, Allison.
Thank you. It's good to be here. Happy to be back.
I know. I'm so excited. It was beautiful getting to have you way back. I mean, it's crazy. This will be, I just hit my 100th episode. So it's amazing to look at like, oh, we had you back on episode 45 and to bring you back around. I think it's been a little around, maybe around a year. Um, but that past episode was an amazing deep dive into kind of your journey with considering divorce, going through that process. And then you came in and did a stunning breathwork workshop for us and the women in the community, which I love and is still over in our extra resources there within the community. But we didn't really get like, sometimes those episodes are so deep and heavy because they're such a like big part of that process, and then also like bringing so much meaning, that I was just really excited to bring you back to just get to talk about something that we both love and are interested in, and that we can kind of vibe about with the other women that listen to my podcast that maybe have already dipped their toes into it, but also have maybe never even played with it at all.
I'm excited. I love all those things. I love talking with people who know a lot about tarot and people who don't know anything about tarot. So I love the whole spectrum. So I'm excited to just dive in.
Yay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So to kick us off, I think I'm going to go the route of those that maybe have not dipped their toes in yet,
Mhm.
and just pop us off with you introducing us to how you would describe or explain tarot to somebody who really hasn't ever interacted with it.
Okay. Such a big question. I'll try and make it super accessible as much as
No,
I can.
I thought you were going to say short, and I was like, no, take your time. Give us the goods.
No, 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 no,
But
no,
yeah,
no, no.
accessible, please.
Accessible. I feel like accessible. And so yeah, tarot is a type of a divination tool. Like I think there's all different types of divination tools, There's oracle cards, which are a little bit different, but I know sometimes people consider, I actually, I mean, even for myself, I found that oracle cards were kind of the gateway drug, if you will, to to tarot.
Me too.
Yeah, I feel like so many women and people that I know started with an oracle deck, and maybe we'll get into that a bit more about why that is, but tarot is a 78 card system. So, pretty much more or less every deck that you pick up, regardless of what the artwork looks like, regardless of like what the theme is, there will be the same 78 cards. Every once in a while, you have a creator who gets cheeky and like adds like, another like one or two cards or something. But for the most part, there's 78 cards. They've been used for centuries. They actually have some roots in Italy. That's where I think the oldest decks are. And they were actually used as playing cards. So if you were to if you were to get a tarot deck and you were to just start like opening up, you would notice like, oh, this is interesting. This looks familiar. There are suits to it. So, like in a playing card deck, you've got the clubs and the diamonds and whatnot. In the tarot, there are what is it, like 56 cards? Math is not my strength. But there's like roughly 56-ish cards that are basically resemble a playing card deck, but they're the suits are the pentacles, the cups, the wands, and the swords. So there was a game that sort of went along with it, but then there's another 22 cards in the tarot that don't have suits associated with them. And those sort of follow the hero's journey. That's how I like to look at it. And so together, if one were to, regardless, like I said, regardless of who the creator of the deck is, I even have decks that are in different languages. You don't actually have to know what they are because each deck sort of has the same energy behind each card. So I don't know. That's kind of a roundabout answer, but they've been around for a long time. People have been putting their own spin on them for a long time, but there's sort of a system to the cards. Whereas if you were to compare it to an oracle deck is, I have decks that have 12 cards. I have decks that have 140 cards. It's really whatever the creator feels called to create. And so that's a little bit different. So both different types of decks, but one has a bit more structure to it. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of like
I
quick
am,
and dirty.
yeah, but so necessary. I'm so glad I had
Yeah.
you do that because
Hmm.
I've been working with the tarot for probably, I guess, maybe 2 years now. And it's
Hmm.
crazy how hearing you go back over it, I'm like, oh, for someone who's back when I had never interacted with it, that just
Hmm.
felt so foreign, even hearing,
Hmm.
the cups, the wands. And it's so beautiful to realize now, a couple years in, how much it has become this part of me
Hmm.
that it's like
Hmm.
learning a language that you then get
Hmm.
to share and experience like different dialects of or different flavors with each of those
Hmm.
different decks. But with the tarot, it's cool that you do have this foundational piece that is
Hmm.
the same and kind of unites all of them in being
Hmm.
tarot.
Absolutely. Yeah. It makes it easier. And um, I don't know. I have an absurd number of decks in my life. But it's nice to be able to be like, I can pick up any of them. And
Give
then
us a number, Allison. How many decks do you think you have?
of tarot and oracle, it is probably, oh, this is embarrassing. If I were at my home studio, I'd be able to show you my wall of tarot, and I think there's probably about 50 decks total of different
Oh,
kinds. Yeah, there's
I
a lot.
love
There's a
it.
lot. And it
I
became a wall of tarot by accident. Like I was like, I wonder if I have enough that could fill up this wall, and sure enough, I did. Yeah, it was crazy. Yeah.
I'm I know your initial reaction to that is like, oh my God, this is kind of embarrassing. But I have found tarot decks feel like collecting art to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Mm-hmm.
think of it as like a gallery that I'm, acquiring of different artists. I love finding ones that are like very unique or different. I love having artists that like have multiple different takes on different decks and kind of collecting their work. So I know you're like, I have a whole wall, and you were a little embarrassed at first, and I'm over here going, yes, hashtag add that to the, hashtag tarot wall, need this in my life, may add this to the bucket list.
Yeah, I recommend it. It makes me really happy. And yeah, it's interesting. I mean, well, and also I find there's such a beautiful thing to receive as
Yes.
gifts and to give as gifts. And so a lot of people over the last several years have started to give me, so a lot of them have been gifts. So they might not be things that my daughter's given me several that are pretty funny, that I might not necessarily use on a regular basis, but when I look at them, I'm like, oh, that's really sweet. So yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah. But it's a lot.
Also, really love you. That was something I had not thought of, but I'm so glad you brought in the difference between the oracle and the tarot
Hmm.
because same, I definitely started out with oracle decks, and it almost makes me think of how I think in the beginning an oracle deck felt more manageable because it was like you're
Mm-hmm.
just kind of learning this one deck, and with Oracle for me, each card kind of felt like its own self-contained message often
Mm-hmm.
in some of the early decks I was using. I was using like a lot of Rebecca Campbell's, which are
Hmm.
kind of just like one
Yep.
card things. Um, Whereas the tarot, like I was just explaining, it's taken me almost 2 years to start to really feel like it's more a part of me. And when I see cards, I actually recognize them. In fact, I have like a Rider Waite deck all up on my wall. I'll have to include a picture for my Substack subscribers so they can see it with all of it broken out because I just wanted to learn those symbols and those visual pieces. So I really loved you explaining that, like, for many people, it is. I've heard from a lot of friends, it is a kind of common path to do Oracle first and kind of dip in there. And then eventually you find yourself longing for something that's a little bit more just down in that like deep shared language, which becomes the tarot.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The shared language piece is really cool, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So now that we've kind of just given my listeners a overview for those of them that have never been around tarot, I would love to kind of track back with you into your first experiences with tarot, especially because for me, I came from a very strict religious background that was very patriarchal. So, it was like, oh, God's power is, or divination, like being able to receive inspiration from God is really kind of like through the male lineage. And yes, you can pray, but there's like limits on what you can do. So I, growing up, would have thought of like tarot in like the Ouija board realm, very taboo, kind of like I don't know. And I was very interested to get to talk to somebody else about, who's had experience with tarot, what your feelings were or thoughts were about it before you had ever even interacted with it.
Such a good question. It's interesting. Um, I feel I grew up super Catholic, and like the church was such a huge part of my life. And but but what I've come to realize is that for various reasons, my experience with Catholicism had a lot of mysticism in it. There was like a lot of, for various reasons, and I think Catholicism does. I mean, I'm actually literally tomorrow leaving on a pilgrimage to go to a Christian mystic site. So that pull to mysticism and connection has been something that I've been very aware of, but I think I always took it very seriously. Like it was like that's a very serious thing, and it's not play, necessarily. And for tarot specifically, as a younger person, I wasn't necessarily drawn to the tarot, but I was very connected to like mysticism and this idea that like the divine is everywhere and there's lots of different
Mm.
ways that you can connect with the divine. And um I remember having a friend who had a tarot deck and feeling very much like, she's like, let's play with this, and feeling a very strong feeling of this is not for play. Like it
Mm,
wasn't like I thought it was. So I recognize that a lot of people have this a background where it was like bad or like the devil or whatever. And that was not my experience. I think I just always had this sense that it was big and it needed to be treated with respect. And I think that has carried me through my life. So when I eventually started, as I grew older, I would say in the last like, 7, 8 years, have really started to connect more with my intuition and my knowing in a more serious way. Like I think I kind of shut that
mhm.
out in some ways. But as I started to intentionally get curious about it, at some point the tarot felt I felt called to the it sounds wild to say, but I felt really called to the tarot, and but it was from a place of I want to learn how to use this. It was like I intentionally signed up for a class, like I enrolled with working with a mentor pretty quickly. Um and took it very serious. Like I've taken it very as serious, like seriously, but like also playfully. Like, okay, this can be a tool to learn and to play with. But play as a form of um
Connecting with the
connection.
divine,
Yeah, connecting with
wh-
the divine. Yeah, I guess.
which
So,
has
yeah.
that weight, that kind of weight to
Mhm.
it of like connecting with your soul, connecting with
Mhm.
perhaps your purpose or ideas or concepts that, um, yeah, you may not potentially be ready at times. I love you talking about being called because I felt the same way. It was like there was just a moment where it was, yeah, I feel ready and I want to lean into this, you know, deeper kind of work of really coming to know a language that I can speak with my guides, my higher self, source, all of that. Um,
Yeah.
that's one of the things I'm excited about also getting to hear from you around is, you know, I love getting to provide perspectives like that of you realizing and growing up believing like the divine is all around and there are lots of ways we can access it. And I'm realizing like that's what was lacking for me growing up was it was like the divine is available but it can only be accessed through these prescribed channels. And so yeah, tarot, when I first started interacting with it, almost felt like, ooh, is it okay that like I had to really work through and coach myself through, which has really been all of my deconstruction for me coming out of my religion into more of the mysticism I did that God is accessible in all sorts of different forms and ways. Um, Now I love that for you when you came to it, you like went straight into like I want someone to teach me. I Yes,
Very on
this is
brand, which is how
very
I
on
approach
brand.
things. I'm like, "Oh, if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna, like, fully invest in it."
Yeah, that was not the case for me. Mine was a little bit more of like organically bringing it in and learning it. But I think that has kind of shown in your journey too, because as we'll talk about later, you do read for other people. So, what was it like to I mean, I think that's a beautiful moment of like really investing in, hey, I want to learn this language and I want somebody to teach me. I've never had that experience, so I'd love to hear what that was like for you to actually engage in a course or a curriculum that was and a teacher.
Yeah, it really just I mean, it's we keep using this idea of it tarot as language, and it was really almost like breaking it down into, like, if you were learning a language, like, these are the verbs or the nouns or whatever, so it's like learning what the okay, so as I said earlier, there are suits in the tarot. So if I'm pulling cards and cups are turning up um in my reading, this is what this is what that suit is about. So that's the flavor of this card. And then you've got numbers. So learning about numerology, learning about, there's different, there are learning the hero's journey and how that applies to the first 22 cards of the major arcana. So it was really like, it was just breaking it down into here are the different parts of this language. And then how do you want to, now that you know the parts of the language, and part of it is before I enrolled in working with someone about the tarot, I'd really invested in learning about my own connection to my intuition and my flavor of intuition. So like,
Mm.
for me, I hear things. So like, okay, if I'm hearing something and I'm pulling a card, how do I blend the two? Like how might what I'm hearing connect with what's on the card in front of me? And so then learning how to, and that was once I had the understanding of the language, then it was figuring out or exploring how to play with my own intuitive connection in relation to this like card. So that's, I don't know if that's what you're asking, but
Yeah.
that's
I
kind of what it was like. It was like learning the language and then putting my own, and then understanding how to bring my personality almost to the language.
Yeah, that's one of the things I love the most